So you know that feeling, right? You've gone through a breakup, and no matter how hard you try to move on, that thought just keeps creeping back in.
Like, how do I get her back?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you might be thinking, maybe a quick text every now and then.
Keep things casual.
Yeah, like in her posts, just little things just to stay on her radar.
Just she doesn't forget you.
Right, to kind of show you're still, the good guy that you are, that you're still around, and maybe that will, make her reconsider.
Right, like, oh, he's still there. Maybe I made a mistake.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But the stuff we've been looking at suggests that, doing all that stuff might actually be having the opposite effect.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, that instinct to want to stay connected?
Totally.
Because it makes sense on the surface, right? Like, you care about this person, you don't want to just vanish from their life.
Of course.
But what we're seeing in these sources, especially this book, Get Over Her, Get Back to You, by Alberto Casuso.
Yeah, great book.
He basically says that constantly being there actually makes it less likely that you'll get back together, even if that's a possibility somewhere down the line.
Yeah, it's so weird, right?
Yeah.
Because it feels like the opposite of what you should do.
Right.
It feels like you're giving up by going silent.
Totally.
But this whole no contact thing, it's not about, trying to play games to make her miss you.
Yeah, it's not some mind trick.
Right, exactly. Although, that might happen anyway as a side effect.
Sure.
But the main point of no contact is that it's the best way for you to heal and to improve yourself.
It's about taking care of yourself.
Exactly. Think of it like your superpower for dealing with this breakup.
I like that, your breakup superpower.
So in this deep dive, we're going to get into why no contact works and also look at the traps you can fall into that mess things up.
Those are important.
Yeah. And we'll also talk about what to do if she reaches out to you.
Oh, that's a tough one.
It is. So the goal here is to help you get back to being your best self.
Absolutely.
So right after a breakup, it's natural to want to stay close to your ex.
It's like you're still in that habit.
Totally.
Yeah.
And there's also that hope that, maybe things will work out.
Yeah, you're still holding on to that.
But Casuso, he's very straight up about this. He says that trying to stay close during this time is basically what he calls cutting the emotional bullshit.
Cutting the emotional bullshit.
I like that.
Yeah, it's a powerful way to put it.
It is.
He's saying that, dwelling on the past and replaying memories over and over.
It's not going to get her back.
No. And it's definitely not helping you to move on.
And the truth is, life goes on.
It does.
And chances are your ex is already moving on with her life.
Right. She's doing her own thing.
Exactly.
It's so easy to get stuck in that loop of feeling sad and missing her and constantly thinking about her.
It's like a broken record.
Yeah. But the book points out that, those feelings by themselves, they're not going to magically fix things.
It's not enough to just feel sad.
Right. And if you stay in that place, it actually prevents you from doing the real work you need to do on yourself.
The work of moving on. And you know what happens? You get hit with this wave of missing her.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah, or some random memory pops up and you just get this urge to reach out.
It's a text or call.
Yeah, or even, worse, to show up at her place.
Oh, yeah. Don't do that.
Definitely don't do that.
Casuso really emphasizes how acting on those urges actually gives your ex more power in the situation.
It's like you're handing it to her.
Exactly. Every time you reach out when you're feeling vulnerable, it's basically saying to her that you're still hung up on her and that you're having trouble moving on.
And you're the one making the effort.
Right. And let's be honest, from her point of view, that constant contact, it doesn't look so good.
Not attractive.
No, it doesn't make you seem like you've moved on.
So here's something interesting. This whole silence thing. It's not just about what it does for you.
It affects her, too.
Yeah, when you're not constantly trying to talk to her or explain yourself or win her back, it forces her to deal with your absence.
She can't avoid it.
Right. She has to face the reality of the breakup without you being there all the time.
It's like taking away a crutch.
And from what we know about attachment theory.
Which is basically how people form bonds in relationships.
Right. This sudden absence can really shake things up for her. It can make her rethink the whole relationship in a way that she wouldn't if you were still around.
Because you're not there to influence her thoughts.
And you know what? Even if she was the one who ended things.
Even then,
when you completely cut off contact, it changes the dynamic.
Because it's not what she's used to.
Right. And it can make her reevaluate the situation and her own feelings.
It's like that age-old saying, you don't know what you've got till it's gone.
That's so true.
It's a human thing, that fear of loss.
Yeah, but here's the most important thing. The biggest benefit of no contact is what it does for you.
You're the priority.
The book is very clear on this. It's not that going silent ruins your chances of getting back together.
It's something else.
It's that you're still emotionally dependent on her.
Like you need her to be happy.
Yeah. And you're stuck in this belief that getting her back is the only way to feel better.
And that's just not true.
No, it's not. And believe it or not, Kasuso says that no contact is actually the fastest way to start healing and to rebuild your self-esteem.
It's like hitting the reset button.
It is. Think about it. After a breakup, you go through all these crazy emotions.
Up and down all over the place.
Yeah, highs and lows moments where you feel hopeful and then bam, you get hit with sadness.
The dreaded breakup roller coaster.
Exactly. But when you stick to no contact, those emotional swings start to even out.
They become less intense.
And that gives you a more stable foundation to process everything that's happened.
And to heal in a healthier way.
And it all comes down to shifting your focus away from her and back to yourself.
It's time to focus on you.
Kasuso is very blunt about this. He says that when you're constantly obsessing over your ex, wondering what she's doing, what she's feeling, you're basically giving away your power.
You're letting her control your emotions.
So going no contact, that's the first step to taking back control of your thoughts, your feelings, your actions.
It's like taking back the reins.
And the book makes this really important point. True closure, it comes from within.
It's not something she can give you.
It has to come from you.
You have to find it yourself.
And this reminds me of a psychological concept called internal locus of control.
Oh, yeah.
Which basically means believing that you have control over your own life and your own happiness.
That you're not a victim of circumstance.
Exactly. And during no contact, when you shift your focus inward, you're actually developing this internal locus of control, which is super important for your well-being in the long run.
It makes you more resilient.
And there's one more thing that really resonated with me from the book. It's this idea of rediscovering yourself.
That's an interesting one.
Because, even in good relationships, it's easy to lose track of parts of yourself.
You kind of blend together.
You develop routines together. Maybe you let go of some of your own hobbies.
The things you used to do just for you.
And no contact gives you that space to reconnect with who you were before the relationship.
To get back to your core self.
To rekindle those passions and interests that maybe you put on hold.
And that's not about trying to make her jealous.
No, it's not about her at all. It's about your happiness and your growth no matter what she does.
It's about becoming a more well-rounded person.
So we've talked about how powerful no contact can be, but Kasuso also warns about some common mistakes that can totally sabotage your efforts.
Landmines.
Yeah. The first one, and probably the hardest, is breaking no contact because you just can't resist the urge.
You cave.
You do that sudden urge to send a quick text or make a casual call or even just creep on her social media.
Oh, the temptation.
The book is very clear, don't do it.
Resist.
Because it just shows her that you're stuck in the past.
You haven't moved on.
And this really highlights how strong habits and emotional triggers can be.
They're hard to break.
They are that desire to reach out. It comes from the way you used to communicate in the relationship.
You were so used to talking all the time.
And resisting those impulses, that's the real test of whether you're committed to no contact.
It shows that you're putting your long-term healing first.
And that you're stronger than those fleeting urges to connect.
That's huge.
Another common trap is what Kasuso calls falling for the friendship trap.
Oh, yeah, the friend zone.
So she breaks up with you, but then suggests, let's stay friends.
Which sounds nice on the surface.
It does. But Kasuso is very firm on this, trying to be friends, right after a romantic breakup. It actually slows down your emotional recovery, and it definitely doesn't make it more likely that you'll get back together.
Because you're still there.
You're still available and accessible, which doesn't give her the space to actually miss you or to really think about what she's lost.
And it doesn't give you the space to move on emotionally.
You're stuck in this limbo.
Holding on to a sliver of hope.
While at the same time, you're being prevented from detaching yourself emotionally, which is what you need to do to truly heal.
It's a recipe for disaster.
Then there's this trap of chasing the fantasy.
The what if.
It's that unrealistic belief that if you do some grand romantic gesture or send the perfect message, it will somehow magically change her mind.
Like she'll suddenly realize she made a mistake.
Yeah, the book gives this example of a guy named John whose girlfriend, who was really into the outdoors, broke up with him.
So what did he do?
He immediately signed up for a hiking course.
Thinking that would win her back.
Yeah, he thought if they had this shared interest, maybe she'd come back.
But it backfired.
Totally, because by that point, her feelings had already changed.
The hiking wasn't the real issue.
It wasn't, and this shows how dangerous it is to focus on superficial solutions instead of dealing with the underlying reasons for the breakup.
It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone.
And a lot of times, this urge to do some grand gesture It comes from not wanting to accept that her feelings have genuinely changed
Denial.
and that, some temporary shared interest isn't going to change that.
It's a hard pill to swallow.
Another big mistake is waiting for her to apologize or to give you closure.
Like you need that from her.
Kasuso is really clear on this. Closure is something you create for yourself.
You have to find it within.
If you're just waiting for her to suddenly see the light and give you the perfect explanation, you're going to be stuck in the past forever.
You're letting her hold you back.
And the book even suggests that you should apologize to yourself.
To yourself.
Yeah, for any time you feel like you wasted.
That's interesting.
It's about taking responsibility for your own emotional well-being.
Instead of waiting for her to make things right.
Because if you're always relying on someone else for validation,
Whether it's an apology or an explanation.
you might be waiting forever.
True closure comes from accepting things.
And having compassion for yourself
And making a conscious decision to move on.
on your own terms.
Exactly.
And finally, the book warns against getting sucked into those get your ex back in 30 days schemes you see online.
Oh yeah, those are everywhere.
Relationships are complicated.
They're messy.
There are so many unique dynamics and underlying issues. And if you want any chance of getting back together, it has to come from real personal growth and change.
From both people.
Not from some manipulative tactic or some unrealistic timeline.
Those schemes, they prey on your vulnerability.
When you're feeling desperate.
They give you this false sense of control when everything feels chaotic.
But if you're really meant to get back together, it has to happen organically.
Through genuine connection.
And mutual growth.
Not manipulation.
Okay, so you've made it through the no contact period. You're starting to feel like yourself again, and then boom,
She reaches out.
her name pops up on your phone. The book talks about how this can trigger a whole flood of emotion.
It brings everything back.
It does, but it also warns you not to jump to conclusions about what it means.
Don't get ahead of yourself.
It's so easy to misinterpret her motives,
To think it means more than it does.
especially after a period of silence when there's been no contact. Suddenly she's reaching out, and it's easy to get your hopes up.
You think she's had a change of heart?
But Kasuso points out that she could have all sorts of reasons for contacting you.
Not all of them good.
Maybe she just wants attention or an ego boost
Or she's testing the waters.
to see if you're still pining for her.
It doesn't automatically mean she wants to get back together.
And the book makes this really insightful distinction between contact that might be manipulative
Like she's trying to play with your emotions.
and the respect that's shown by an ex who stays silent.
Who gives you space.
Because when your ex lets you heal and grow without interference, it actually shows consideration.
It shows maturity.
And that can create a foundation for genuine reconnection down the line.
Yeah.
If that's what both of you want.
Like in the example of George.
Yeah, he respected his ex's need for space.
Yeah.
And ultimately it led to a much healthier relationship.
Because they both had time to grow.
But the most important thing when she reaches out is to hold on to the power you've worked so hard to reclaim.
Don't give it back to her.
Don't drop everything and revert back to your old patterns.
You've come so far.
You've put in the time and effort to improve yourself. Your life is moving forward. You need to look at the situation based on where you are now,
On your needs and your well-being.
not just on her sudden interest.
You're not at her beck and call anymore.
And that's really the whole point of no contact. It's about taking back your agency and your self-respect.
It's about empowerment.
So when she reaches out, you're in a position of strength.
You're not coming from a place of neediness or desperation.
You can evaluate things with a clear head.
And make a decision that's right for you.
So to wrap things up, this deep dive into Kasuso's work really shows us that no contact is not some childish game or a way to manipulate someone.
It's much bigger than that.
It's a powerful strategy for healing and growing and taking back control of your life after a breakup.
And it's not primarily about getting your ex back.
It's about you.
It's about becoming the best version of yourself.
If we break it down, the main takeaways are that no contact stops those unhealthy emotional cycles. It gives you the space you need to grow and reflect, and it shifts your focus back to where it belongs on your own well-being and your future.
You're in the driver's seat.
And on that note, here's a final thought for you to ponder. Think back to those initial impulses you had after the breakup, those urges to reach out to her. Were they actually helping you to heal and move on, or were they keeping you tied to a past that's no longer serving you? What does it really mean for you to reclaim your power? What kind of future do you want for yourself? One that's defined by what was, or one that you're creating on your own terms?
It's your choice.
It is choose wisely.
You got this.
You do.